I'm going to talk to you about PHP. It's a very commonly used server-side programming language. Also, I'm going to throw in a little disclaimer of you may hear the distant rumbling of my children. They're dancing above my head at the moment, or you may hear my wife make some sounds in the background. We share an office, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Anyways, PHP, server-side programming language. It was invented in 1994. It's gone through a lot of different iterations since then and changes. We're on version 7 at the moment. But in this video, I'm just going to lay out a lot of the sort of concepts or just give you a high-level overview of what the language is. So first of all, what does it stand for? It stands for Personal Homepage. Like many web technologies, it started off as sort of a hobbyist project or something like that, and now has evolved into consistently one of the top 5 most popular or commonly used programming languages in the world. So that's like the web in a nutshell. It's like, hey, I got this great idea. Let's give it a shot. A few years roll by, now everyone's using it, and they should have made different choices in the beginning, but, well, now we're stuck with it. But anyways, PHP is getting better with time, I think. They also changed the name. So now it stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. Unless we're going to run out of space. So it's a recursive acronym because they think that's funny, and it sounds better than personal homepage. So that's not what they say it is, but the web doesn't forget anything. We remember it's really just personal homepage. Anyways, so what is this about? I'm going to kind of scroll down to give myself a little more space. Unlike, say, HTML, which is a markup language for the browser, or JavaScript, which is effectively our only choice for programming in a web browser, PHP runs on a server. So let me draw a little diagram for you. That's not great. Someday I'll be good at using this tablet. Not today, though. Oh. So some squiggly text on here. Yes. This is a web browser. It's going to have, HTML plus some form of JavaScript. That's going to do everything. Oh, and we'll put, CSS too. Let's not forget about CSS. HTML and CSS are going to form, the visual aspect, what we're actually going to look at in a web browser. JavaScript's going to implement any sort of, programming or logic. But we need to do things on a server. So like, make an order, make a post to social media, save some information, etc., etc. I don't know. There's a lot of different things. So if I put it over here is my web server, we're going to have requests. This is HTTP coming across. So HTTP request. And then, of course, we get an HTTP response back. Now, over here in the web server, we need to run some sort of code to do what we need to do. So if it's, Amazon.com and you want to order your new, 100-pound bag of rice for the quarantine, we need to place that order in a database somewhere, and then send you back a page saying order confirmed or something like that. So over here, there's a lot of different choices. I've given you an example in the past of Flask with Python. This is where PHP is going to run. So PHP is really popular over here. Honestly, it's gotten so much market share, I don't really see it going away, even though people gripe about it. And this is going to do most, well, not most, it's all of our server-side logic. So that's going to be, processing the request, storing things in a database, and then, generating I don't know what I was doing there, generating or making a response. Let's say. So typically, you don't have to be working with the database with PHP, but it's very, very, very common. This also allows us to essentially, long story short, PHP, what it really gives us, dynamically created pages. Uh-oh, that text is horrible. Let me rewrite that. Dynamic pages. So that way you don't have to create web page after web page after web page manually with HTML. We can use PHP as almost its original purpose is really it's a template. So it's like a template for an HTML page. Though now there's more uses for it. Now the response, I'm kind of ironically I have all the space in the world while writing on my screen here, but I've somehow run out of space. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. Goodbye, CSS. At least that part. So typically there's response coming back. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of this little bit too. Here, this response is going to be typically HTML. That was the original thing. Or we could send back JSON. So this is, HTML that was the original purpose. That's basically PHP being a template for a web page. JSON, this is I'll put down here. It's like a web service, like REST. So that's another usage. Is well, instead of the response when we generate it, instead of that just being a new page, it could be just some different data format like JSON, and that's going to be dynamically loaded into our web page via JavaScript. So rather than generating a whole page each time. Let's go down a little bit. So really, in our response here, let's see here. So the main thing to realize is the user is going to request a URL, or by the user I mean like a web browser or some kind of web client, right? So it could be, foodexample.com. So let's say we have a URL like this. This is, the domain here. This is not as relevant. Domain. So that's going to look up which server to call. Everything over here. So I'm going to, whoops, I didn't mean to erase that. Whoopsies. Okay. Shoot. Where's the highlighter? Highlighter, come back. Sad. Okay. Never mind. This part is going to be, let's call it a path. So often PHP runs on Apache. I don't know why I wrote an M. Apache plus PHP. Apache is the name of a web server what it's going to do is take this path segment over here, and so when it receives this, it's going to look in your file system, wherever the web directory is, and then look for foo.php. So if there was another example, bar and Baz, let's say. This request for URL, again, somewhere in your file system in its web directory. Those are just set up when you set up the web server. It's going to look for a directory called bar and a file called baz.php. So what this, so there's this mapping from URL really into a file system path, and we can see there's a particular script being requested. So in this case, foo.php. Now, what this really means is each one of these, foo and baz, these are just their own file. And they just contain PHP code. So you can really think this URL is going to just be mapped to like a standalone PHP program. Sorry, my art's getting worse and worse as I go. PHP script. So a single PHP program is called PHP script. It's ended with .php. And this can be responsible for doing, well, whatever it needs to do. So maybe read another file, generate some response, access the database, make some response, take the input it's given, and dynamically build out a new page and send that back. But really, just like when you go to say, let's say you're working with Python and you run a Python script or program, you just ask for it by name, it runs, it does what it needs to do. In the web setting, really we're just going to send in a URL. The web server is going to turn around, look up a PHP file, a PHP script, and just run it and take its response, whatever it generates, and send it back to the user, just like I had up here. So instead of printing out something like a normal program would, like if you're writing a command line program where it just print to the screen, PHP, since it's the web, is going to end up just building a response that gets sent back to the user, typically an HTML page or maybe something like JSON. But I think that covers most of the high-level pictures of this. I'm going to do another video on getting started. I'll go through some basic kind of hello world style examples. Thanks for watching.